It's with great pleasure that I'm sharing the story not only the 300,000 doctors that make part of the European Junior Doctorate, but also to share some of the stories that all of us know very well when we were students, junior doctors, and when we finished medical school. We are always very proud, very happy. We have our degree, and we really expect to have a joyful experience as future specialists, going to the field, finally working independently at treating patients and fulfilling our mission as doctors. But then, new questions start to be asked. Where should I go? What should be my priority in life? Should I create a family? Should I continue my relationship? If I go 20 kilometers from here, what should I do with my life? And which specialty should I choose? Should I go to family medicine? Should I go to surgery? Should I go to internal medicine? What will be better for me? What should I do? What exam should I study? What grade do I need? And that's also really, really interesting questions. And then when you go to the field, you start to understand that you enter in a big storm. A lot of the times you are alone, and a lot of the times you need to make the decisions in the ward. You became a medical doctor, and now you have to control a ship with a lot of other health professionals, and you must work together. And a lot of the times you go to regional hospitals without any support, and you must work together to save the lives of your patients. And this is also the life of a junior doctor, but not only junior doctors, also surgeons. And you work a really, really difficult life, but you are always proud of the work that you do. You can have a surgery for 20 hours, but you still feel accomplished with the work and the advancement of medicine. However, although we love to work and we love to practice medicine, a lot of the times we are not properly respected. A lot of our junior doctors are receiving 500 euros per month. That doesn't allow them to go to conferences or to even buy materials. We have junior doctors sleeping and people taking pictures thinking they are relaxing, but they are dead tired. I must remember everyone in this room that the World Medical Association updated the Declaration of Geneva, also known as Hippocratic Oath, and it's now our responsibility to take care of our own health, well-being, and the abilities to provide care to other practitioners. And it's a shared responsibility of all of us. And we are under pressure, not unfortunately by ministries of health, Ministry of Finances a lot of the times, and it's really important for junior doctors, specialists, anyone that cares about the healthcare systems to work together in order to avoid this conception that junior doctors, medical students, so on, just go outside of a machine, that everyone needs to go through this specific process and everyone will be the same. No. We are humans as everyone else. We have a really, really care for medicine, and it cannot be seen as a tool to achieve a political goal. We want to take care of patients, but we kindly ask to be respected. And with that allows us to take the best decisions, to be understood, and not to pass to the community that the doctors don't know and the scientific method is updated, because then that has consequences in terms of morbidity and mortality. We see an increasing of measles, we see increasing of disease that didn't exist in the past. And we need to talk about those matters. Everyone in this room has a responsibility for advocacy. In one way or the other, everyone are responsible for advocate for matters that improve the lives of doctors, that improve patient care, that improve patient safety. And that must start at medical school and also during postgraduate education. Students and junior doctors must also know about the healthcare system. A lot of the times we don't know the dynamics of financing, the dynamics of information, but when we arrive to the field, we need to make decisions about money, about which system to use, when to use it, and we must provide guidelines on that. Postgraduate education cannot be seen as a repair shop. And this was already seen in 1910 in the Flexner reports. We must be prepared after undergraduate studies to go into postgraduate and become specialists and not to study something that we needed to study in the past. We also must understand how to fail, and we need to make decisions as junior doctors, and a lot of the time they don't teach us that you will fail. And you will fail several times. But you also have to learn how to learn with your mistakes. And it's also important for junior doctors to understand that maybe specialty and your work is not everything. You also have your family. You also have your personal life. And it's important for all of us to respect sometimes the decision, or a female junior doctor that wants to become pregnant and the department doesn't allow her to take days off. Finally, if you leave this message, that will be enough for me. Support junior doctors. It's important to know the healthcare system, better quality of life, better medicine, better patient care. And I was saying this all week. Probably a lot of us, the first person that we'll see in our lives is a doctor, and probably the last person we'll see, it will also be a doctor. So take care well of us. We will promise that we will take care of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Agostinho. Really profound messages. May I invite Teodor now to give his talk?
Thank you very much. Good morning. Oh, perfect, it's working. Good morning, everyone. I am Teodor, and this is a village from Romania. And we always invite you to Romania. We will receive you with open arms and good food, and my country is not even paying me to say this. One day, me and my colleagues from the med school, we decided to go in this village and provide primary healthcare services to the people, just for a few days in a weekend. And you may think, why? We did that because this village didn't have a hospital in the proximity, and we thought, okay, why not? We can help a community, get some skills in the process, and also why not feel like doctors, you know? Like, we are not even doctors yet, but we can feel like so and see how it is. So we went there. It was close to my university, and it was shocking because we had hundreds of people waiting for us there, and they came, like lots of them. And the fact that we were wearing a white coat was inspiring them, and they were calling us doctors. We were not doctors, but it was not even feeling like doctors, it was feeling like gods for them. They were believing everything we were saying, and that was shocking for us, second or third year medical students. And the reality hits us even harder. The moment when we found patients almost 100 years old, they have never seen a doctor in their lives. And we didn't know what to talk to those people, how to talk to those people. And we found patients with diseases, especially cardiovascular, how to tell them, what to tell them, where to send them afterwards. We are leaving tomorrow. So it was a bit tricky. And we thought, are we actually having an impact on these people? Will they do anything about their health once we leave here? And the answer was kind of no, unfortunately. So is that because of us? It is, because we are strangers. We couldn't understand the culture, the hardship of rural life, and we couldn't speak the same language as them. So we went back home, and we thought, okay, communication was not that good, was not a piece of cake as we thought. We helped some people for a few days, but in the end of the day, we left, so they are there alone still. But what we found out, and we all believe in, is that we are needed. Those people there, even though they don't realize, they need us. And, okay, they need us, fair point. But we are studying, we are reading books, mostly PowerPoints. We are taking exams, doing our best. But if we are doing our best, why aren't those people having actually very good healthcare? And that was the problem. And usually when it's a problem, you blame the government, easy way out. But blaming the government means waiting, and it's annoying. So why if we involve medical schools? And I was thinking, medical schools, meaning student educators, rectors, funders, hospitals, so on. Let's involve them all and find a solution to actually adapt our education to those communities and go back to the community and provide. But even more, let's serve communication as the main dish, not a side dish. Let's find the students from that community that talk the same language, educate them and send them back to the community. And even more, let's have a student-centered approach when we teach them. But responsibility is hard. And, well, a social contract and having responsibility, it's even harder. because that community will not be a community, will be our community. So from that point, joining med school will make us responsible for those people. And when we are responsible, it's a problem because, we cannot just blame the government anymore. And are we maybe prepared for it? And thinking about it, we will have a few questions. Why do we have med schools? Do we have med schools to provide X number of graduates or to actually trim the education to those community? I say community, and if you do the same, please raise your hand. Thank you. And the second question, that feels like an energizer, and the second question, do we have a direct or an indirect responsibility? Direct meaning, are we providing the services as med schools, or we are indirect partners of the healthcare system by providing the healthcare human resources? And I say indirect in this matter, and please raise your hand if you agree with me. Okay, it's a majority, that's good. So, welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. And we are the club that say that we are ready to consider medicine as a social contract. We are ready to consider it as a social contract between students, hospitals, med schools, and the community. And it's a profession for the people, to the people. And it gives us so much responsibility. And the med schools are not just factories of graduates. So, why is a random guy from Romania telling you that? You may be thinking, and why those students in the village matter? They matter because they are not alone. They matter because, for us, medical students, unity is relevance. And I will show you in a bit how unity looks like for the medical students, because there are a lot of us out there. And this is how unity looks like for the medical students worldwide. It's the same students that went to that village, but it's the same in 123 countries and 133 organizations, forming together a team of 1.3 million students. And that's strong because they are in your communities. Go and talk to them. We want not just to be a voice, but partners in medical education. And this community has a name, and it's called the IFMSA, the International Federation of Medical Student Associations. And we don't only do projects, campaigns, we work with global partners, but we are the people that will be the future leaders of medical education and of global health tomorrow. And we put value in our impact at the grassroots. And because of that, we took a pledge in 2018 as future healthcare professionals and advocates for social accountability. We pledged not only to promote social accountability, but to acknowledge health as a human right and help those communities reach health in the proper way, adapted to their communities. And in order to do that, it's our job. We call upon you all, stakeholders, to go to your medical education and align your medical education to the community, to provide exposure to the community, to the students, and even more, to provide a flexible education approach so that students will learn in a flexible manner. And for that, we are even helping. We are providing a social accountability toolkit that you can take and use with your students. And we are supporting strongly that it should be a partnership between students and educators in this matter, because we are not alone. And let's promote together this unspoken social contract between medicine and us, and regardless of the level we are performing. So in the end, we go back to the village. But this time it's not just the village. It can be your village. It can be your community. And it's one more change here. It's a difference. There is an exclamation mark. So let's leave AMEE, spread the word, and be the exclamation marks in our communities back home. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you. Not only powerful words, but very powerful photographs as well. I'd like to introduce Beatriz now, Beatriz Carbonell. Thank you, Beatriz.
Wait, I think, yeah. There is one experiment I like to do when I'm with friends, family, people that don't have anything to do with medicine. I usually ask this question: do you know where the spleen is? Have you ever tried doing the same? Replies are amusing. One time, they told me it was a part of the brain. Another, that it was a small bone of our skeleton. This short and funny question made me reflect and think. The main theme of this conference is patients as educators. But do we really know if students perceive the importance of patients knowing and understanding basic health information and being capable of making their own informed decisions. My name is Beatriz Atienza Carbonell, medical student from the University of Valencia in Spain, and medical education director of the European Medical Students Association. And today we'll explore the relationship between health literacy and medical students. EMSA has 114 medical faculties active in their organization, representing more than 100,000 medical students all over Europe. EMSA envisions a united and solidary Europe where medical students are empowered to advocate and promote health through its 6 pillars of actions, which are medical education, European integration and culture, medical science, health policy, medical ethics and human rights, and public health. But we have a big number of partnerships with institutions, organizations, and we are also recognized by the European Commission, the European Parliament, and last year we were recognized by the World Health Organization as a non-state actor. As health literacy is one of the key promotion pillars of the World Health Organization 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. WHO is concerned about the health literacy among medical students and doctors. As research was scarce in this topic, EMSA decided to take a step forward and start a study on this topic. On this word cloud, you will see, we represented the replies that medical students gave us when we asked them to define health literacy with their own words. Out of 4 medical students in Europe, only just 1 doesn't have any health literacy teaching in their medical schools. In order to improve that, in order to change that, EMSA developed and adopted a policy statement in order to recommend, to promote health literacy in all stages of education, to incorporate health literacy in medical education and the medical curriculum, and to train not only medical students, but also other health professionals in this topic. We are calling to action to all stakeholders to involve the future generation of health professionals in order to ensure a quality of healthcare. But in the same way, we're calling towards the involvement of patients as they are the center of the healthcare. Together with the beginning of the 21st century, we saw the world is shifting towards a digital society. Digital health technologies are promising to be a new tool for patient involvement and empowerment. We are seeing that healthcare is shifting towards high precise and personalized, do-it-yourself, citizen science medicine. Shouldn't our efforts be rooted towards bridging that gap in digital health in medical education? We were thinking about that. So EMSA developed another survey in which we encountered both a willingness of medical students to become a key actor of the digitalization of the healthcare sector, and also a lack of practical skills in e-health and training in the digital health area. EMSA is involved in the e-action of the EU members states and also in the e-health stakeholder group of the European Commission in order to take a stance in this important topic. We, among other initiatives that we are being a part of. Nevertheless, all these efforts would be in vain if it wasn't for the collaboration we're having with other international institutions and students' organizations, such as the veterinary, the dentistry, the pharmacology, the nursing, the psychology students. And with this idea, it was born the European Healthcare Students Association Summit, in which last year we organized all together an event in the European Parliament in order to bring to the table the important issue of interprofessional education as a way to improve the healthcare of tomorrow. And next actions on this topic, on digital health, health literacy, include this event in the European Parliament, where all of you are invited to participate and come with us, as health champions are wanted. And no one can whistle a symphony. It takes a whole orchestra to play it. So please, if you agree with what I said, please come together, all stakeholders, and make a stance in order to improve this current situation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Not only good words, good photographs, but real passion. Thank you. I'm now going to introduce Jennene, who's got the hard task of follow that.
Following the students. Wow, what a gig. Thank you very much for allowing me to be a little bit controversial. So I'm here to talk about creating the future for the health workforce. And, you know, the future is here. It takes 20 years to develop, to train a doctor. This is our town. This is a small autologous bus that we've got rolling around our community. And I saw on the news this morning that Singapore also got one. So Renmark and Singapore, imagine that, doing the same thing. But we can get carried away with all of the technology that's for us. And what I think is we have to pay attention to what's happening around the world. Global trends are that the population is growing at an extraordinary rate. We'll have new diagnoses to manage and multi-morbidities because of climate change. And there'll be increased migration not only in the population with refugees and refugee health, but also increased migration amongst health professionals. And people are just moving around, not working where they need to work all the time. So the World Health Organization is also very concerned about this. 18 million people shortfall in health professionals in the future. We need to educate more people and to promote more jobs. That will actually help us to economically and globally around the world. But the kind of health professionals that we need are not, we are already training digital natives. We need to link people with technology, information and the kind of knowledge that's needed. And we need to link them with the healthcare system and the actors in the system who are other healthcare professionals. The whole system is the answer. This map shows where there's a shortage, and there's more than 2,600 medical schools around the world, but 24 countries without any medical school. And the kinds of schools that we've got are all about training specialists. We need to balance that with training more generalists and to have those generalists working in places like Africa and in the developing world. Medical schools have a social obligation, so more health professionals are needed, many more health professionals, thousands of more health professionals in each of your schools to work where they're most needed. And I've taken these sort of pictures when I've actually been around the world. With people working in extreme poverty. This woman had a very large goiter and she's working cracking rocks for less than $2 a month. So we need not to have cyborgs. We need to set up our future health systems and we need to set up our medical schools for the future quite differently. So what do I mean by set up? Well, I don't mean cyborgs. I don't mean getting carried away with artificial intelligence. Set-up stands for something, and it's an acronym. So I think that We are already getting far too carried away with technology. Take it back to the simple things. And as the students have said, social accountability is a key. So S in my setup stands for social accountability. Very easy to say, difficult to do. But it's all about having the courage to lead for social change, getting to know your community. And the Net are the place where I've found have got amazing tools and inspiring people to go and visit. Be bold, the sky's the limit. Your community knows what they need. And you have to have the courage as leaders to be able to go into those communities and see where there's different kinds of learning opportunities. There's all sorts of unexpected opportunities if you allow that to emerge in a different kind of medical school for the future. You need that courage to change the way in which you attract the medical school students to your school as well. Some schools are already starting to use emotional intelligence as a way of attracting the students, but emotional intelligence could be used as a framework for creating a different kind of graduate and trainee in the future. So E is for emotional intelligence. And I think that the first thing that we need to do is have a very strong dose of empathy. There's quite, sadly, literature out there that's showing that we're decreasing the amount of empathy. We need to have equity and diversity in our schools as well. We need to have students understanding those organisational systems and to be confident in being able to navigate the health system. And we can do that by not only having them in hospitals but also in the community. The social skills that they need to develop are the ones that they will learn from and with their communities and their teams. And I think it's important to have multidisciplinary interprofessional learning and leadership distributed throughout the organisations, and the way in which we can have our medical curricula change is to develop social skills. Our students are somewhat advantaged in Australia, but our curriculum is designed now so that they have much more opportunities for critical reflection. And we're really much more conscious about the way in which we help them to identify, to develop their identity. And so we give them time and think about the way in which they are going to become the kind of doctor they want to be. So we're facilitators of their learning. And we want them to be self-regulated. Our curricula needs to be a constructivist curricula that isn't telling them what they need to do, but presenting a smorgasbord of learning opportunities. And self-care, as we heard from the students also, the junior doctors need to learn how to be resilient. Alongside that, they'll have the energy to be able to deliver good healthcare for the communities in the future. T in setup stands for transformative learning and leadership. And the transformative learning is all about getting from the start different kinds of students into your programs. So I would advocate that you can trust the community to select your students. This doesn't happen nearly enough. And we have community panels with 3 community members who have identified their own criteria for getting the students into the medical school. And our leaders need to be transformative leaders. Leaders who are transformational leaders who are just not hierarchical, much more interested in being able to work with others and create innovation opportunities and foster talent where it's most needed. Transformative leaders are the ones who have great courage to do things quite differently. Transformative learning will require really significant change to the assessment processes. We do far too much testing. I don't know if that's the same in your organisation, but we need assessment for change. We need to give students the opportunity to show that they can have their own portfolio of learning opportunities that they've been through. And U in the setup is for working in learning in underserved communities. Getting out of the hospitals, getting out of the clinics and working with learning and alongside. So longitudinal integrated clerkships that are community engaged are really the way to go for the future. That provides continuity of learning, patient care and the curriculum. Lastly, in setup, it's all about power, politics and partnerships. I would advocate that you really get to know the politicians and to understand the politics of the big P politics. and to be socially active and politically active, and to work out ways of developing meaningful partnerships so that then the politicians know where to invest and how to get training where it's most needed. So in the future, we need to set up new models for learning, new curricula, new medical schools. So with me, I hope you can set up your programs for the future. Thank you.
Rose to the challenge. I'm now going to invite Jason to the floor. I couldn't see you there and you appeared on that side, trying to trick me, okay? Thanks, Jason.
Good morning, Amy. Good morning. Aren't the students inspiring? Truly amazing. I hope you had a good conference. I was reflecting when I was asked to do this that I've been going to AMEE conferences for 15 to 20 years, and there are some recurring themes that I thought maybe I could comment on, but I wanted to warn you that this talk will be provocative. I'm going to come up with 8 statements of things that I think we should consider changing. And if you disagree, you can groan. If you like it, you can clap. But hopefully you'll have a sense of humor. I call this the zombies of medical education because these are ideas that just do not go away, and I think that they are holding us back. So some of you might have heard this phrase before, these ideas must die. Has anybody read that book before? No, not in this audience. Good, I can make up things. So there's a book called This Idea Must Die, and it's a collection of things that are holding back our society. It might be a scientific paradigm. It might be another element of how we've organized our society. And I think there are some of those that exist in health professions education, and they come up occasionally here at AMEE. So I have 8 statements for you in the next 6 minutes, and the first one is learning styles. So even thank you. You've read the literature, but all over the world there are still publications that come out every year, because of course one of us has said sometime in the last little while, I'm a visual learner, or maybe an auditory learner, but the evidence says that if you randomize classrooms to organize it that way, it doesn't work. So there's no benefit for meshing your learning style to your instructional style. In fact, there's a possibility of harm by having really inflexible instructional methods. So learning styles is the first one on my hit list. Let's move on, let's talk about something else. So my next topic is cognitive biases. Dun, dun, dun. Did you know there's more than 400 cognitive biases? And those of us who are really passionate about teaching the next generation to make better diagnoses, we love to teach these cognitive biases if we could just remember all 400 of them. And I'm sure I have these biases that impact my diagnoses, but here's the problem. They don't work. When you try and teach someone to slow down and think about cognitive biases, they make more diagnostic errors. In fact, the more expert you are, the more you slow an expert down, the more errors they make. This is great work by Jeff Norman and John Sherbino. Look up the papers, it's really impressive. What should we do? We should teach exemplars. Generalism is a God term. Losing Lorelei Lingard's phrase. Generalism is a term that all of us aspire to. We want our graduates to be able to be multipotent, and they can help communities in a variety of ways. But the conversation is impaired because it's a cacophony. There are so many different words and ways that generalism is interpreted. There's a report on our website of our Royal College where we had a task force look at all these words, and we're just about to publish a systematic review, and we found thousands of papers, and the papers can't even agree what we're talking about. When I speak to government, they want more generalism, but they're not sure what it is. Oh, how about feedback? I'm sure that's going to get me in trouble. Feedback is a good thing, right? The problem is it isn't executed very well on the ground. We have all these different models of feedback. If you're like me, you were taught to say something nice, deliver the payload, and then something nice again. Like, it's great to see you, nice tie, too bad you're going to be a terrible doctor. It was great having you. We can do so much better than teaching feedback and doing it that way. And so my colleague Denise Richardson has developed coaching in the moment. Isn't that a nice phrase? Our CPD colleagues have been doing this for many years. They're the masters of coaching already. And she uses this model, RXOCR. you have to have rapport, you have to set expectations, you have to observe something, that's important, and then you coach with an active statement, something people can do something about. How about student evaluations of teaching? Aren't those important? If you've had one, you know how painful it is. Here's the problem. Doesn't it make sense to ask the consumer of any product how they feel about how that works? And so wouldn't it make sense to ask our students about teaching? The problem is all of the biases that enter this. We run a podcast called the Key Lime Podcast, Key Literature in Medical Education, and we just reviewed this paper, a randomized controlled trial of giving out cookies to teaching sessions. 2 standard deviations improved a course evaluation. We can do so much better, and I do take cookies. Speaking of the Key Lime Podcast, I have kind of a beef with just how we're publishing med-ed papers right now. And when we review papers for this podcast, we repeatedly see some recurring themes, not referencing old literature, but one of the biggest ones is we don't have a common language. Terms used in a variety of ways, and it's a real problem. How about this one? Legislating trainee duty hours in the name of patient safety. We looked at the literature because we really wanted to create a great system that is good for our trainees and good for our patients. And there's no correlation between patient safety and resident duty hours. Do it for your trainees. It's better for their health. And then my last statement, training's harder when I was young. Ken Ludmer, who's a historian, says when he was on call for internal medicine in the 1950s, they admitted 5 patients per week. My friend Chris Parshram in Canada, he actually gets trainees to wear Fitbits, and he collects urine from them and blood samples, and he's done it over a decade. There's a series of papers, and guess what? Training's getting harder. Less sleep, more fatigue, more ketonuria, more dehydration, more arrhythmias. I think that's to do with the caffeine. Sicker patients, and a lot more procedures. So this is my list. I'm provoking you. These are 8 things, 8 ideas that must die, and I've got a list of 30 more. And you know what else? I'll leave you with, there are a few things that are our future, and some of them are in our room. Those are our students. And this list includes things like competency-based medical education, growing clinician educators for the future, moving to practice analytics, e-portfolios, medical schools that are really schools that focus on teaching and not just research. How about focusing on the growth mindset? And let's do some med-ed research across institutions so they're not all just in one little spot. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you, Jason. Controversy reigns. Now I'd like to introduce Ruben, who is going to be our last PechaKucha talk. Thank you.
All right, so good morning, everyone. What I want to talk about this morning is AI, but taking a somewhat different perspective than you usually find. I don't believe AI is magic, and in general we'll find that the way it's being represented, whether for good or evil, or utopically or dystopically, is as though, well, whatever we decide, it's going to be running the world, and it's unavoidable, and we'd best get used to it. And I don't think that that's the best way of looking at it or the most productive. Now, one thing that reinforced this was the reaction to when AlphaGo won the World Go Championship, and that became the moment of magical AI. It's, it's magical. It's not. It really is not. And I'm going to come back to this. But it cemented this view. It cemented this view that AI was too complex, too opaque, too difficult to deal with. Now, we've seen some superb results from the open projects, from the open data, open source projects in terms of the outcomes that can be achieved. We've really seen great tools that can work with doctors, but we'll note that agency has not been a big part of the discussion around these tools. And by contrast, with the closed source tools, the ones that operate as black box, well, the news hasn't been so good after all. There's been a lot of question of transparency, a lot of question of, well, should we trust these results or not? We can't get at them. We don't have access to the data sets. We don't have access to the source. There's been some real issues there that have caused some concern with good reason. And finally, some issues that were present at the beginning of the current generation of AI, guess what? They're still with us. This is from just a month ago. And we still see these issues of bias there, except for one more thing that's become very unfortunate. We're seeing these biased AI tools being used now in commercial packages. So that's not a good thing. Okay, so far so not so good, but there's one additional thing. Right now, the setup of AI as it is being found in the world, as we're seeing it used, is a nesting ground for black swans. What do I mean by this? What's a black swan? Well, a black swan is an event that's generally negative and that has three key characteristics. First, it can't be predicted ahead of time. If you can predict it, it's not a black swan. Second, the effect is major. It's not just, that was interesting. No, it really has a huge impact. And finally, once it's gone past, you say, oh, so that's why that happened. Of course, you never were able to see that coming ahead of time. And the standard model for a black swan event are the major financial crises of the 20th and 21st century. And again, all of these were, people said, well, you know, we saw some trouble, etc. Yeah, but nobody saw when, nobody saw the magnitude, nobody saw how to prevent it, and in general, people were unprepared for dealing with them. So we'd rather not have something like this happen with AI. But unfortunately, the structure of AI right now lends itself to this. AI doesn't replace jobs wholesale. AI replaces pieces of jobs, which leaves you with a bricolage, with a very complex and obscure structure, very similar, in fact, to some of what happened with the financial systems. And that's ready-made for black swans. And in addition to that, there's an additional problem with how we see AI right now. According to Jonathan Zittrain, AI right now is giving us what you would call an intellectual debt. Just like financial debt, intellectual debt is fine if we manage it. If we let it get out of control, though, it can overwhelm us and it can crash the whole system. So these are two elements that mean that we're just about ready or overdue for black swans. Okay, so what do? Do we just say, well, let's ban AI? That would be terrible, because there's some incredible potential in AI right now. Instead, I'm going to